Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. Well, it's been a few weeks since the big fiasco over at Bud Light, aka Anheuser Busch, and I thought it would be fitting to do a follow-up episode to learn what has happened in the aftermath. After all, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I opened my show about the Bud Light-Dylan Mulvaney partnership with a parody of Bud Light's Real Men of Genius ads, which were genius in their day. Here was my spin on it.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius. Real Men of Genius. Hold on. Real Them of Genius. Real Them of Genius. Today we salute you, Mrs. Transgender spokesperson. Nothing says football, steaks, and beer like a man in a girl's dress. Saying the tight end. What we want to know when we are all watching the big game is what is that quarterback's pronouns? We like to be inclusive. So crack open a cold Bud Light, transgender spokesperson. Because when we look at that cold can, we feel diverse as hell. Miss Transgender spokesperson. Anheuser Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
That video got a lot of attention on YouTube Shorts, and on Instagram, over 200,000 views alone there. It was so spot on that Instagram was asking me if this was a paid partnership and suggesting I add Bud Light as my partner. Now, how cool would that have been if Bud Light had actually taken notice and said, screw this whole Dylan Mulvaney BS, we like this ad better? Well, many of those commenting on my parody said that very thing. User AzerDraco3146 said, fun fact, if the company had used this ad campaign, things might have gone differently. If they have that kind of ingenuity in the ranks of their marketing department, they might be a lot better off. This is what happens when diversity and equity initiatives ruin a company. Someone gets the idea, hey, we need inclusion, and Dylan is all over the news right now. He's been on the Grammys, he's been on Drew Barrymore, he's dressing up like a doll, so it's a perfect partnership. Bud Light's VP of Marketing is Alissa Heinerscheid. She is a graduate of Harvard and the Wharton School of Business, so her pedigree is high. According to information from Cake.com, Heinerscheid became the first woman to lead Bud Light in the brand's 40-year history and was recognized by Ad Age in 2022 as one of the 40 under 40 rising stars in marketing, advertising, and media. She was promoted to her current position after a nearly 8-year tenure at Anheuser Busch in various marketing roles, including a recent stint as VP of Direct-to-Consumer Marketing, which includes e-commerce. She created the role of Bud Light Blue VP, which refers to the main brand, proposing it to a top Anheuser Busch executive through a 30-page pitch. It came after nearly 4 years of working on Bud Light, including overseeing the 2019 Game of Thrones Super Bowl ad. Heinerscheid was on a recent podcast talking about how her values shaped her business vision in her role.
It's amazing to see a woman at the heart of the Bud Light Super Bowl commercial. And I think there's probably a lot of ways that, your own background and your own perspective and your own values, the person you are at home impacts and has a ripple effect on the Bud Light brand. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think number one, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. And it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. And we had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of fratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had another approach. So long story short, Super Bowl spot, fast forward, I cast an incredible female choreographer who just brought incredibly positive, amazing energy to the spot. We cast Miles Teller and his wife, Kelly Teller. But it was really crucial to me that if you see that spot, Kelly is the heartbeat of that spot. You're seeing this whole experience through Kelly. She's the beating heart. She, I would sort of argue, is sort of what propels you through that experience. And that was intentional. And then we had another really fun spot. First spot out of the gate was the first time ever we'd had a female protagonist in this really cool, she was sort of cool as hell, bobbing and weaving through a bar. But anyway, listen, I'm not going to pretend that there isn't so much more work to do from a business results perspective and, of course, from a representation perspective. But I feel like you have to put your money where your mouth is when you're trying to evolve a brand and elevate it and bring in new consumers. So that's been incredibly important to me.
Amazing.
So to her, evolve and elevate meant inclusivity. The only way you come to that conclusion is through cultural mind warping. This is a Harvard and Wharton grad who is wrapped up in her own BS that has been taught to her in academia and elitist circles in New York, where she lives. That clip that I just played is what you've likely seen already. But to understand the mentality behind her decisions, you have to look at the whole continuum of her thinking and her pattern. She is the first woman to lead Bud Light's marketing efforts. But the irony of this is that as a woman, she is not elevating women by choosing a man who pretends to be a woman. That is counterintuitive. But progressive leftist groupthink promotes this type of idea. The why is always important. We have to ask ourselves, why did Heinerscheid make this move? Well, number one, her company gave her a mandate to evolve and elevate. But what did that mean exactly? To her, because of the circles that she runs in and because she's trying to shirk her sweet Southern girl persona, it meant an upending of that mindset. During COVID, she started a project called 100 Women in 100 Days, asking each person, what's in your worry box?
And I realized it was all about connecting again with women and building community. And so I just kind of launched into this thing, started talking. First, I started with my college roommates, and then I tried every one of my friends. And then you realize pretty quickly, I was like, well, I'm at 28. I don't really have that many friends. And so then, it started kind of like fractaling out.
Yeah.
And pretty soon I was talking to total strangers, and I asked everybody the same question, which was, what's in your worry box? What's scaring you right now? What are you worried about? And I just think it speaks to kind of how much this community of women during that moment in COVID were seeking vulnerability and honesty, because the level of kind of candor I got from total strangers and my college roommates was pretty much the same. So I think a lot about how, as a woman now, bringing humanity, bringing vulnerability, building relationships, that's actually what powers me, and that's what gives me joy. That's sort of everything that matters,
Absolutely.
This is classic, heady academia jargon. She's well educated, and so Bud Light sees her as this progressive, mindful person who can Ivy League her way out of problems. I can see on paper and in interviews why they'd choose her. But therein lies the problem. This academic lib fog, a word I'm making up, is often prized above common sense. So she uses words like mindfulness, gratitude, celebrating the wins, micro actions, raising tiny humans, communities, permission, empowerment, worry box, value system, messy monkeys, safe space, and performative to paint this academic portrait. Bud Light picked her in part because she had been in their in-house ad agency. So, okay, she paid her dues. But when wokeness infects a company, they feel more inclined to tap someone like her to lead. Management probably felt that tapping a woman would help evolve the brand and see it from a different angle. Not a bad idea per se, but she brought with her a certain philosophical academic lib fog. So rather than thinking about evolve and elevate as ways to take what works and proliferate that, she thought of it in terms of inclusivity, community, and diversity. She claims that the brand was fratty and the humor was out of date. The consumer base is fraternities, sororities, collegiates, and traditional conservative Americans. Working with a transgender person who doesn't understand basketball to push an NCAA March Madness campaign is tone deaf to the consumer base.
Keep watching at epochtv.com/The Beau Show.